The so-called sun god revealed to be the new giant warrior pirates' navigator Road, Luffy and the kidnapped crew bursting through the other side of the Lego diorama. What do they see beyond Road's room? Is it Elbaf? Is it a ship? Or is it something else entirely? Let's find out during my first reaction and review of One Piece chapter 1130, The Accursed Prince. Which, as a title, makes me think we're gonna probably see Loki, even though on my my non-existent One Piece bingo card, I think that Loki is going to be a woman, or maybe has the ability to transform into a woman. Either way, let's start with the cover page. It is Oni Child Yamato and the Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage, Volume 17, Someone Steals the Katana While They Sleep. So we're seeing Yamato, Tama, and Shinobu all asleep after the training, and we see a hand bathed in shadow taking Yasui's sword. Is this the same person that's been kidnapping all the women? Or is this somebody else? Is Yasui somehow not dead? I doubt it. Oda has been a bit more willing to kill people off recently, so I would be absolutely stunned if he brought back Yasui. Either way, let's get onto the chapter proper. We start with Frankie. Listen up, warriors. We're calling off the search. We ain't found squat after all this searching, but I'm sure it'll be fine, says. All the other pirates are stunned, as they would be. It's like, you can bet your ass they're alive. Thanks for looking, though, says Frankie. Everyone, the Straw Hat crew is just not that fussed. They're like, yeah, this stuff happens. Robin, that's right, we'll wait for them on Elbaf. They'll make their way there. Jimbei, yeah, we've done all we can. Even my shark network is worn out. We appreciate your efforts. And Brooke, we're also out of food. Let's not starve ourselves to death. So the poor old giant warrior pirates are like, oh, this is literally like our deity. We got to find them. They were our guests. We've let them down. And then the older members of the crew. I just realized, yeah, these four are the older members of the crew. I think they're all over 40 or something like that. Brooke, well over 40. And they're just like, yeah, stuff happens. We'll see them on Elbaf. Broggy, or is it Dory? I always forget which one's which. I see. I'm sure it'll be fine if their crew says so. It's decided. Set course for Elbaf, you slimy oafs. Let's toast our homecoming. But, boss, we're out of food and booze. So they've clearly been searching for a while, and they're completely out of food. It's huge, says Luffy. They've burst out. So they weren't on a ship. They were in a castle? Check out this tree. It's going to be thousands of years old, right? So yeah, we're seeing they've burst out of... it looks castle-like to me, but it could just be a regular Elbaf house. But it seems to be in a snowy tundra on top of like a cliff face. It's not just that one. They're all so big. Is this a mountain? It's freaking cold here. Look, there's a super long rope bridge. And indeed, we do see a rope bridge that extends up into the sky, into the clouds, which... if that shadows what I think it is, might be Yggdrasil. This place is so vast it's making me dizzy, says Nami. Giants are crossing the bridge. Hide. And we see other members of the new giant warrior pirates. I don't get Harjudin. Why'd he let that crackpot join the crew in the first place? This is Gerd, the woman on the crew, and she's holding an owl. It's because he's a skilled navigator. New giant warrior pirates, the cook. And sorry, Gerd is the ship's doctor. And this is the larger fellow of the new giant warrior pirates who looks very jolly with that sort of circular button nose. His name is Goldberg and he is the cook. I can't stand him. They may call Loki the shame of Elbaf, but he deserves that title even more. Okay, sorry. They may call Loki the shame of Elbaf, but he deserves that title. For a second I thought Road was a nickname and he was actually Loki, and I was like, wait, my prediction was correct somehow? But no. Degya, that is Goldberg's laugh. Rodo, okay, so these translators, they're calling him Rodo instead of Road, but yeah. It's hard with the Japanese hiragana or however they write it, but Rodo. Rodo probably wouldn't mind you calling him that. Yes, he is indeed a perfect. You sure of what you saw, Piper? His croak was carrying a small ship, right? So Piper is the owl's name. We're meant to arrest intruders, but Rodo keeps smuggling in intruders of his own. Get back, Luffy, but they look like nice people, says Luffy. So get back, Sir Luffy whispers Nami. We'll let our Elder Ja Rule know as soon as we find them. Did you guys hear that? They said, Elbaf, we finally made it, says Usopp. I never thought I'd see such a giant babe, says Sanji. Hey, over here, Luffy starts shouting, and they're like, Moron, didn't you hear them? They're looking for intruders. And the two of them turn around, and they're like, probably our imagination. It was probably the wind. And yeah, the two of them say, right. They knock on the door, say, Rodo, are you here? Wow, it's shaking it so long. Luffy is on the rope part of the bridge. We better hurry, we'll have nowhere to go if more come, says Zoro. This was made for giants. The gaps are too big. Keep going, Nami. I used to cross rope bridges like this all the time. I think, who's saying that? You get used to it. They're all so far in the distance. Like, Luffy is perched atop of the rope part of the rope bridge, which actually looks like interwoven tree like vines, which is a pretty cool look. And in the distance far below him, we're seeing the rest of them following across. This is just a trial to prove we're worthy warriors, says Usopp, who is clinging desperately to safety. The forest below is full of huge wolves, and indeed, we see some huge wolves. What's wrong, Luffy, says Zoro. You feel that? I'm getting goosebumps, says Luffy. You can't see, right? Then you can't go either. All forest from now on are off limits, says Zoro. I heard something back in the block country too. A roar. It's got to be coming from down there. And Luffy completely ignores them and jumps off the rope bridge. I'm going on ahead. Hey, Luffy, this is nothing to Usopp the Brave Warrior, says Usopp, who is just still clinging on for dear life. Nami is riding Chopper. Where are you going? The wolves are down there. And we just see the rest of the crew isolated on the bridge as the cold, snowy wind blows. It says, what? We attacked Egghead, according to the morning paper. Why would they lie like that? Oh, this is good. It's too small to make out. Yeah, it's Broggy. Okay. I'll read it aloud, says Nami. The giant warrior pirates, it's too small to make out. That's what they're saying. So they've gotten the newspaper, but obviously Morgan's doesn't print a giant-sized newspaper for the giants to read. That's actually a very good point. The people of Wano would have been isolated just due to their location. But are the giants? They're isolated from information just because it's like they can't get Morgan's newspaper, so they can't even be misinformed or let alone like know the truth, because the print is just going to be way too tiny for them, which is a pretty funny thing. But yes, Robin reads the paper for them. The giant warrior pirates have awoken after a century-long absence. They set Egghead ablaze with Emperor Straw Hat Luffy. The captains of this legendary crew, Broggy the Red Ogre and Dory the Blue Ogre, have received new bounties of 1.8 billion berries apiece, which I think is fitting. There's been a thought in my head for a while of bounty bounty inflation over the years, where I reckon at the beginning of the story, because Oda was thinking One Piece was only going to go, or he had it ready to finish in 5 years, which I think is a bit ambitious. It would probably be about 10 years, because like Oda says, he gets dragged along through the story by Luffy. But I reckon one of my thoughts is that the highest bounty in One Piece was probably only 1 billion, or maybe 500 million, like that low. So when we first saw Dory and Broggy back in Little Garden and their bounties were 100,000, which was the largest bounty we'd seen at the time, like even larger than Crocodile's when it was revealed of 80 million, that was a big deal. And even Luffy getting 30 million, that's a pretty big deal if the cap is 500,000. But obviously as the story increased and bounties got larger and larger, we had to readjust what the ceiling was, which is, it's good that Oda didn't reveal like Whitebeard and Gold D. Rogers bounty early on either. But when we saw how strong they were in Little Garden with their Hikaku sovereignty or whatever it is when they killed the goldfish, the fact that they were only worth 100,000 was pretty ridiculous with that level of strength, and if they were apparently terrorizing the seas. Unless bounties just as a whole increased after the death of Roger, but I doubt that. Because I think, their bounties were during the time, or Gold Roger's bounty was before he became King of the Pirates, which meant that Whitebeard's was probably about the same. Either way, this is much more fitting, 1.8 billion berries, so good for them. 1.8 billion, we didn't intend on making a comeback, says Dorian Broggy. The bounties used to only be 100 million, that's quite a jump. Oh, Robin seems to answer my question. Prices would have changed a great deal in the last 100 years. This amount seems reasonable for you captains. They're also blaming Luffy for Vegapunk's murder. What? They're always changing the narrative, says Frankie. So you guys killed me, says Lilith. Shut up, we fought tooth and nail to save you. When was this taken, says Brooke. The World Economic Journal, or WEJ, somehow always gets their scoop, even on Egghead, says Jinbei. Whoever took this picture probably got a handsome reward. And the picture is, it's just Luffy in his Nika form, and it looks like it's probably Vegapunk during the broadcast, are the two pictures that we're seeing on the front cover. Hey, when Luffy turns into that freedom form of his, does he normally get this mark on his arm? It's an X. I'm not sure he was hopping around too much for me to see. It seems off. His arm is blurry, but the mark is crystal clear. That's interesting. So the X on Luffy's arm, which I just thought was from his time in Alabasta. Remember, Emmett also had an X on his arm when we saw him in the flashback. But his arm is blurry, but the mark is crystal clear. So X marks the spot, boys. The One Piece is Luffy's left arm. Worry about it, says Frankie. It just seems familiar, says Robin. So Straw Hat is officially on a similar standing as Red Hair, right? Even that whippersnapper of ours, Harajidon, is under your umbrella, I hear. That rambunctious brat is the king's own kid, you know. He wanted to come fetch you himself, but we had seniority. Besides, someone's got to keep an eye out for trouble in Elbaf. His name, Hadridin. It's not Harajidon, it's Hadridin. So Hadridin is the king's son, which I guess would understand then why Road would have quite a nice place to stay. Though Dory and Broggy still have seniority, or I guess seniority as in they are older and they have got more experience, or they knew Luffy first, or something like that. Either way, that's a few interesting things. But definitely, the X on Luffy's arm, which, if this was a long time plan by Oda, a genius, because the mark that they drew on their arms for Alabasta, so, we'll always be part of the same crew and all of that sort of stuff, and the fact that that is there. That being said, maybe it is the same mark. Though it is weird that it seems supernatural that the mark is crystal clear in this image when the rest of his arm is blurry. But all these four, even Robin, wouldn't have been there when they drew the mark on his arm, though you'd think that Robin would have seen his arm since Alabasta. But it started back while our captains were missing. See, Elbaf has another prince. This is another giant warrior pirate. When he was born, they called him the Accursed Prince. He devoted himself to darkness, and a few years ago, he was sentenced to crucifixion. He tried to flee, but we warriors all came together to catch him. All the warriors of Elbaf, says Frankie. His name wouldn't happen to be... Yeah, he's not right in the head. You see, there's a legendary devil fruit said to be passed down through the royal family. His desire to eat it was so great that he killed his own father, King Harold. That's why we won't let the accursed Prince Loki... That's why we won't let the accursed prince loose again. Sorry, my brain... I saw prince and then an L-O word and it went Prince Loki, but no. That's why we won't let the accursed prince loose again. If Loki ever does escape, it'll be the end of everything. He's the shame of Elbaf. And interestingly, in the silhouette of Loki that we see, I'm going to say his until proven otherwise, because everyone's calling him a prince, but, everyone was... shenanigans in One Piece does occur. Like, I only have a daughter, but I need a son, so I'm going to call him a son. But yeah, it'll be the end of everything. So some sort of very powerful devil fruit lurks in Elbaf, which seems like something Blackbeard would want. But either way, if it's sequestered on the Giant's Island, it's probably going to be fairly difficult to get to. But yes, he is the shame of Elbaf, which is interesting because, he was going to marry Lola, or he wanted to marry Lola, and in the silhouettes of everyone around Loki, that seemed to be fine. Like, everyone seemed to be supporting him. But maybe it's, like I said, my end point was incorrect. But my logic leading up, after getting rejected by Lola, he's probably gone a bit crazy. And I thought the result was he became the fake sun god and was taking control and doing that sort of thing. But maybe something even worse happened. But yes, he killed his own father, King Harold. Not Odin, Harold. A bit of a name. It's like, yes, there is a Thor, god of thunder, and there is Loki, and then their father, the amazing King Harold. Yes. Oh, and we just see who I'm assuming is Loki. Fascinating. And yeah, the silhouette is a complete lie. We've always seen Loki as like a very large circular figure. Well, I'm sorry, might be getting ahead of myself. This person has been introduced. But Luffy has landed, and we're seeing someone wrapped in chains, blindfolded, mouth open, tongue hanging out, so that's why I think this is probably going to be Loki. A little goatee, and tattoos all over the arms. And you see, they look like they're wearing like a wrestler's belt it's got like a skull with a crown on it. But yeah, state your name, says this person. And I'm assuming is Loki. I'm Luffy, the man who's going to be king of the pirates. Good on you, Luffy. King, says the person. Where is this place? Who are you? This is Warland, the mighty kingdom of Elbaf. They say it is the birthplace of war. It's shaking again, and we see a beautiful, nearly double page spread. Yes, okay, so how do I describe this? There's a lot of mountainous stuff on the ground, and then we, I think, finally see Yggdrasil. And it's enormous. And in fact, actually, yeah, it's enormous. So there's so much stuff here. It's an absolutely enormous tree. Like, the branches of the tree and like the foliage of the tree, it seems to expand past like the boundaries of the island. Then we actually do see the castle the Straw Hats came from. Well, yeah. And it's quite a large castle and is very close to the tree. And we see the rope walkway leading up pretty much directly vertically up into the tree. So frankly, I don't know how that physics is, how you would walk that, because it looks like it's like a straight drop down and then it sort of peters out into a slightly more flat thing to the castle. We see also an enormous sword. Like, this is like spanning over half the height of Yggdrasil. Like, it is unbelievably huge. Like, that, when we think huge things, we think, okay, what is it, like the land, the continent pillars, whatever they're called, like oars. But no, like, this would be, there aren't words to describe how big this sword is. We see on the next layer of trees, we see a whole lot of buildings, so it looks like maybe the Elbaf, or the main living area of Elbaf, is that second layer past the mountains. I also see it's also a really great visual because you can see waterfalls pouring off the leaves and going onto lower levels, and all the clouds around it. They look like there are cannons pointing outwards. So this would be, if we wonder why has the government not attempted to destroy Elbaf at any point, there would be there's no way. Like, first, any sort of marine incursion would have to get past all these waters and then all the mountains, and then they would have to climb up the trees. And I'm wondering, the Uranus, which is what I'm assuming the weapon that destroyed the island and raised the sea level, we're not sure how high above the clouds that is, but I'm wondering if that explains the cannons. Because, like, if there was you wouldn't, as a giant, be able to see anything sailing towards Elbaf. It would be too far away, and it was a human ship or anything like that, they would look like specks. But there are cannons, and they're pointed up. Or at least, like, vertical to up. So I wonder if that ancient weapon back in the day tried to take on Elbaf, or if there were multiple of them, and the giants built these cannons high up so they could shoot it down. Also, it goes without saying, like, I feel like the sea level could probably rise a few thousand meters and they would be fine with how tall the tree is and where they're all situated. Like, they might lose the mountainous area, but further up the tree, they are absolutely dandy. So this couldn't be a more well-defended island, but definitely the most fascinating thing to me is this enormous sword. Like, Yggdrasil is going through several layers of clouds, it's piercing the heavens, and then this sword, like, if it's leaning slightly, but if it was directly vertical, and also I'm just noticing this, you can see a rainbow somewhere on the second layer. So I wonder what that rainbow is. Or it could just be, maybe that the island's so huge that section's got a section of rain, but that rainbow in and of itself is larger than Rhodes Castle. So is it a man-made rainbow? Is this where all the Lego is made? Who knows? But yeah, that giant sword, because you can't wield that at all. Like, it is huge. But yes, sorry, this is Warland, the mighty kingdom of Elbaf. They say it is the birthplace of war. Yes, I am the sun god who will bring about the end of the world, Loki. So interesting that Rodo was calling himself a sun god, which looked like, and he was wearing like that sort of antler skull mask thing. And then this Loki is calling himself also a sun god. So what I'm wondering, is this a hint that this fruit that is on Elbaf, which could potentially turn you into a sun god, is the result that you get that sort of skull deer head thing. And that's why someone young and impressionable like Rode is like, oh yeah, this is what the sun god looks like. But Dory and Broggy know, they see Luffy and they're like, oh yeah, that's Nika. So is that not passed on to a younger generation? There's a lot of questions that need answering. And when we're seeing the bandages, when Loki is shouting, I am the sun god who will bring about the end of the world, wouldn't we see his bandages over his eyes? I don't think he's eyeless, but it's got that sort of glow impression on his eyes that both Emmett and Zunisha have. You know, where they don't have eyes, they have like the hollows and the glowy eyes. For some reason, I'm getting that impression under Loki's bandages. Though I also didn't really go into too much detail on the double page spread of Loki, but that's a really cool shot. Like, he's laid out, he's tied to a tree, and you just see Luffy approaching him, and it's such a nice shot. And Luffy's like barely taller than the width of the chains holding Loki in place. So I feel like Luffy might free Loki. But yeah, so Loki is not a chubby boy, but maybe he was chubby and then he got chained up and he got less chubby because he didn't have the ability to eat. So, this is, the last few chapters have been a bit, like, they've been fun and I've really loved them, but they've been a bit thin on the lore. It's been like cool and interesting seeing all this sort of stuff. Obviously, there was all the speculation about all the errors, which I think at this point were just errors, which is a shame. I guess we'll see during the volume release if those are fixed. But there hasn't been too much lore. There's been a few questions, but not much lore. But now that we're finally out of the castle and we know that new giant warrior pirates are here, Hadrudin is apparently a prince of Elbaf, so that means he would be a brother to Loki. We see the two of the positions of the new giant warrior pirates' crew with Gerd and Gerd and Goldberg. We see this giant rope bridge, which actually isn't rope, it's made of like tree vines. The fact that Luffy could... Here's an interesting thing. Luffy says, you can feel that I'm getting goosebumps, and he's obviously, now we know he's talking about Loki. We can't go see, right? Then you can't go either. All the forests from now on are off limits, says Luffy and Sanji. So maybe Sanji can sense it? Or I'm wondering if there is some sort of connection and between Luffy and Loki. A roar. And Luffy describes it as a roar. But we're not seeing Loki roaring or making any sort of noise. So it's like a sixth sense, like probably like the voice of all things, like when you could hear the Sea Kings or Zanisha or anything like that. And then the big question is the X on Luffy's arm, which, like, let me see, like the 3-day, 2-year when he was there. I'm just trying to get a picture of him, of his arm. No, the X, and that's also his right arm, not his left arm. And when they were saying goodbye to Vivi, that was there. That was on their left arm. Yeah, the goodbye Vivi, where they all drew the X on their arm. That is... It's the exact same position. So there's part of me which is like, is this just a red herring, or it's something where it's like, oh, we've never actually noticed this on Luffy's arm before? Or was it just like a temporary mark? Or was it just giant foreshadowing of, hey, the Straw Hat crew, they have these X's, just like Emmett had that giant, the X on his arm. A lot of questions, and the fact that it isn't blurry. Even, so in the image of Luffy in his sun god form, his arm is blurry, but the mark is crystal clear. So there's something supernatural going on. And the fact that Robin says it seems familiar. Because maybe she saw it after they left Alabasta, and then like they washed and that marker eventually faded. But yeah, if Loki escapes, it'll be the end of everything. He's the shame of Elbaf and that he killed his father. So Hadrudin might get a bit annoyed with Luffy if he frees Loki, who, you know, Loki's father is going to be Hadrudin's father, most likely. Unless they just shared mothers, but not fathers, but that would be strange. But yeah, and a very exciting chapter. Love the shot of the whole of Elbaf Island. And the tree is so huge that even though it's not a full double page spread, because Loki's got like the side fifth of it saying, I'm the sun god who will bring about the end of the world, Loki. And then, but the branches of the tree, they don't even fit in the frame. But yes, the caption, everything's gone crazy. And then, most unfortunately, a 2-week break. Though there's a lot for One Piece theorizers to work with for this 2-week break. Yeah, the giant sword, the cannons pointing up into the sky, and that weird rainbow. There's a lot of cool things to analyze on this image. And I think that's all from me. I've just been sort of gushing about how cool this last image is for ages. But yes, the bingo card Loki does not seem to be a woman. Big sad. Big sad out of 10. All my theories are gone. Either way, thank you for watching. Definitely check out this chapter if you haven't seen it yourself. And I'll see you next time. Toodles.